Team, welcome to the next episode of AskTop. Today we're going to talk about the people behind your team. What do I mean by that? Well, people, we put out an image of who we are, but is that who we really are? You got to get to know the person behind the professional, that individual. When you know who they are, what they think, and how they tick, you can build a strong, committed team. That's next on AskTop. Team, welcome to another episode of AskTop. I'm Command Sergeant Major retired, Mark Gerecht, and I'm your host for today. And we're going to talk about the people behind your team, a path to gain commitment. This is a subject near and dear to my heart, and I think you'll figure out why as we get into it. But first, I want to introduce Oz, my co-host, Richard Green, and brings a wealth of knowledge to AskTop. And we've been talking about commitment previously versus compliance, but this is just a quick video. Let's get us started. There's a young man named Mark Halliburton that said this to me one day, and it really got me to thinking. He said, you got to get to know the people behind your team. And otherwise, who is the person behind that team member, or if it's a soldier behind the uniform? And where I'm coming from is in the military, we see badges, tabs, schools, awards like leadership awards and stuff. And we think that person is really squared away. We see the outside. You know, when we see a rank on our chest, we automatically assume, at least I do, that that person knows everything they're supposed to know about being a master sergeant, being a first sergeant, being a platoon sergeant. That person could have been promoted yesterday and moved into a position in another unit, and poof, they're the subject matter expert, but yet they don't have the experience to some degree. But we make assumptions about people when we look at them. And in the military, especially, you have that uniform, and there's just so many assumptions there. And when we peel that onion back and we start to get to know the person behind that uniform, sometimes that's totally different. You find out that the person you think is high speed, low drag, got everything squared away, is really struggling on a personal level. And Oz said something in another video that really got to me. And I'll tell you how I started doing things different, but I want Oz to share how he did it in his unit.
The way that I did it, and what comes to mind to me is that there's an illustration of a gentleman that's walked up the side of this mountain, and the people that are standing at the bottom of the mountain, they can't see the backside of the mountain. And this guy is standing at the top of the mountain, and he's like cheering. He's got his hands up, and the people on the ground are like, "Wow, he's so lucky! He's so lucky! He got to the top of the mountain." But the thing that they didn't know was that he had to walk over cactuses to get all the way up to the top of the mountain with no shoes on. So they knew of his success, but they didn't know of his struggle. Um, and what I did was this to get to know the people behind my team was at a very young point in my career when I was a staff sergeant. I started doing bios, right? And I would get a young soldier, I would sit them down as soon as I get to the organization, or they would arrive to me if I had gotten there first. I sit them down and I say, "Hey, look, I want you to write me a bio, and I don't want an army bio. I want to know something about you in this bio. I want to know about your family. I want to know what you went through growing up. I want to know about your high school experience. If you went to college, I want to know all of that. When I get done reading this, I want to feel like I know who you are." And some of the stuff that these young people would write was just so heartbreaking, and it was stuff that helped us grow a connection much quicker if we had done it otherwise, right? So once I read these bios, I would go back and I would take each one of these soldiers individually and I would make a time to sit them down and we'd have a conversation. And if I couldn't sit them down, I'd just catch them, walking around the motor pool or whatever, and we'd be walking together. And I'd be like, "Hey, I read your bio. Um, I'll say I read this, and this, and if it was something tragic, and They didn't want to talk about it, got it. But the point of the conversation was to let them know that I heard them. I heard what they had to say. I read their bio, I heard them, and I would share something from my past with them so that not only did I ask of them, I gave them something as well. And that built a connection between us so that they knew off the bat that I cared, because a lot of these young people have never had somebody listen to them. They may have come from a home where, you know, the thought process in the home was that children should be seen and not heard. And now that they're adults, they may have never been heard before. And you could be that first person to hear what they got to say. And you've automatically gained their commitment. But at the end of the day, it's just to show them, like, I care about you. I'm here for you. And when things get bad, I got your back.
You know, when you said that in our last discussion about commitment, that really hit me hard. I was like, wow, what an incredible tool. What I used to do was, depending on how many soldiers I had, as a platoon sergeant, I wanted to know everybody in my platoon. As a first sergeant, I wanted to know everybody in my company on a personal level, and that's a significant um, act to achieve. So what
Mhm,
I did was, I started as a first sergeant. I started with my platoon sergeants, and I would talk to each one of them for 30 minutes in an initial session. And it
mm,
couldn't be a discussion about work. It had to be a personal discussion about me, about them.
mhm,
After I got done with platoon sergeants, I started with squad leaders. My goal was that every week I would sit down. After I got done with squad leaders, I started with soldiers. And that was more difficult, but I would do 3 soldiers a week until I had hit every soldier in the company. And then with platoon sergeants and squad leaders, I made it a point to try and hit base with them every month. So I would touch each one of them every month and a couple of soldiers every month. But what I found was that, I told you before, people didn't want to deal with me because I was intimidating. I guess I was. But it broke down some big barriers for me,
mhm,
because I didn't know I had that barrier, but it made a significant difference. And as a young E5, when we talk about commitment, I remember a young black soldier I had, great kid, always did what I asked him to do, nothing more, quiet, respectful. And, I would try to talk to him and he was just kind of standoffish. But later I noticed he started having more initiative. And he was a PFC. We got him promoted to specialist, got him before the board, and it was time for him to rotate out. We were on a short tour. And he called me over one day and he said, Sergeant Gerecht, I'm going to share something with you I've never told anybody. I appreciate you. I respect you. And you're the only white person I trust.
mm,
And I was like, huh? What? How did we get here? And he said, my brother was killed by a bunch of white guys. They drowned him.
mm,
And I was like, wow. He goes, I just want you to know that you have helped me get over something, that I still have issues with white people, but you showed me that it's not all white people.
mm,
And he said that was because, and we were, like I said, we were on a short tour. There were 40 of us on a site. And he said, every day you came by and said, how are you doing? And in the evenings, you would stop by and talk to all of us in the barracks. But he said, you would come by my room and talk to me. And I did it because I always felt there was something there. I didn't know what it was,
mhm,
but great kid. And when I when I saw him change from compliance to commitment, I was like, wow, what happened?
mhm,
And he told me that was me. I didn't know that. It's like what we were talking about before. You don't know what the impact is you have on people.
mhm,
Stayed in touch with him for a long time. But my point is, just like you said with the bio, Get to know your people, whatever tactic you choose to do. If it's sincere, it's not intrusive, and you care, whether it's sitting down and talking to each one of them, whether it's doing the bio, whether it's doing both, find that way to make that connection, because that connection makes a difference. And I will share with you one other thing. In the military, we are brothers and sisters, whether we like it or not. And there are some people that you're just not going to get along with.
Mm-hmm.
True commitment comes when that person that you dislike, you'll still stand beside.
Mm.
If they're right, you'll back them up. If they're wrong, you'll share that with them. But the bottom line is commitment means doing the right thing when nobody's looking. Um, get to know your people. I can't tell you how valuable that was to me, and I'm ashamed it took me so long to learn it. So that, we just wanted to share this with you today. Oz, take us out.
Uh, the last thing I'm gonna say is that professionalism isn't a character strength. It's not. It's not a part of your character. It's something that has to be worked on. Is something that you have to do on a daily basis. And often we'll look at professionalism and it'll distort um, that person that's behind the professionalism. And the things that we've shared here today, hopefully that'll get some people to see past that professionalism and see that actual person that may be struggling behind the professionalism. So
And
that,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. I was done.
Um, that is so important to see the person behind the professionalism, whether it's a soldier or civilian you work with, because sometimes we wear faces.
Mm-hmm.
We all struggle with something. When you break that barrier and you get to know that person personally, there are many people struggling today that
Mm-hmm.
you can help in ways you have no clue just by caring. So, uh, we greatly appreciate your time. In the comments below, tell us what you'd like to hear from us. Um Oz, I'm going to let you wrap it up.
All right. So I'm gonna keep saying this. When you hear people say that guy wrote the book on it, they're talking about retired Command Sergeant Major Mark Gerecht. When he started writing books, there were no self-help books. So he literally started all of that. Like there's plenty of books that he's put out there. The writer, the mentor. He has software as well to help you out with counselings, OERs, NCOERs, all of that stuff. If there's anything in the military, that you have to do, I guarantee you he has a product that has been produced, that has been proven, that will help you get to the goal that you're trying to achieve. Like I said, my biggest regret is that I wish I had known about this stuff earlier in my career, and I didn't have to do what they refer to as discovery learning. But the tools are there at the description inside of this YouTube video. There's a link to mentormilitary.com, and there's actually a promo code of YT10 so that you can receive an additional 10% off at checkout. So go ahead, get your tools, put them to use, share them with your friends so that we can all be great together.
And I appreciate that, but I'd also like to tell you we've got an email down there below. And if you're struggling with something and you just want to talk offline, feel free to email me, and Oz and I can sit around and talk to you about what's going on. And we can't give you solutions. You have to find your own solution to an issue. We
Mhm.
can give you ideas, things to think about, um, things based on experience, but in the end, it's your decision.
Mhm.
So, thanks for watching. And until the next episode, stay safe, stay healthy.